Are all the people inside the walls subjects of Ymir? The answer is no. I'm making this video because I noticed there are some unclear issues about that aspect of the story, so that fake news is going to be crushed today with facts and proof straight from the official manga, along with a discussion of what really happened 107 years ago when the king decided to migrate to the island. But of course we're not going to stop there. We will also explore the concept of Eldians versus Subjects of Ymir, all the way to Maria Rosensina and of course Ymir, and I will give you my personal interpretation of the evolution of the ancient Eldian tribe. So welcome back everyone, and I hope you will enjoy. If you do, drop a like and subscribe, it really helps me out a lot. And watch till the end because this is going to be a fun video. It's fun because it begins with this douche playing with Darius's torture toy chair thing. We shall name him Chubby Royal Government Minister Guy, because apparently that's his name. Anyway, here he tells Darius that he has noble blood, unlike Darius Zackley, who apparently has the blood of slaves. This was also confirmed outside when Pixies talked to Erwin. That was when they first confirmed Erwin's dad theory. Erwin's dad believed that the royal government kept the past and history of the world hidden, and now the scouts finally found out how. The king had the power to manipulate the memories of the people of the island. All the ministers and supporters of the government who got captured by the scouts also confirmed what Chubby Royal Government Minister Guy said. They claim they have different blood than the rest of the people of the island, which makes them immune to the king's mind control. And although they personally didn't know the history of the world, they were also not lying. They are indeed immune to the power of the founding titan, but not because of their blood being noble like they believed. It was simply because they were never subjects of Ymir. It's also ironic that the blood which they referred to as the blood of slaves was considered to be noble blood in the outside world 100 years ago. This entire situation was first mentioned by Kenny's grandpa. He explained that when the king migrated to the island, he couldn't manipulate the mind of some of the different bloodlines back then. Those bloodlines, or different families who were not subjects of Ymir, had to make a choice: to follow the king and keep the secret, or to die. So some of the different bloodlines fell in line with the king, formed the royal government, and became the noble families inside the walls. But some bloodlines refused to follow the king and got persecuted and killed because of that. An example for that is the remains of the Asian clan, which are immune because they are not subjects of Ymir, and the Ackermans, which are immune because they are a byproduct of Titan science. It's reasonable that more bloodlines got wiped out over the years, but we only got to focus on the Ackermans and the Asian clan, which both were almost near extinction, with Kenny, Levi and Mikasa as the last Ackermans, and Mikasa as the last of the Asian clan on the island. So now you must ask yourself, why did people who are not subjects of Ymir go with the king? Simple answer. Back then, probably many people didn't want to live in a world which is constantly at war. So when the option presented itself and the king decided to leave, they joined the ride. Sadly, we don't know much about the time the king migrated to the island, but we can understand it couldn't be an easy operation. The way to spread the news while trying to not get caught and expose the king's plan, that must have taken quite a lot of logistics. I mean, I don't think a person was going with a list asking people, "Are you a subject of Ymir?" So you can imagine a lot of other people could have tagged along. So the word got out and more people took advantage of that chance and decided to live for a better future. So what actually happened when they arrived on Paraids? The king manipulated the subjects of Ymir he could actually control and persecuted the families who didn't fall in line. The families or bloodlines that agreed to follow the king got to live, so they kept the secret and some also gained higher status. The first generation of those families did remember the life beyond the walls, but because they wanted to keep their lives, they kept the secret from their children and future generations. They kept the secret about the subjects of Ymir, but raised their kids to believe they have different blood because they were nobles. There is also a proof for that in the warrior's backstory. After finding out about the fake king, the warriors also understand how the government was structured. Those people were able to stay in power because they are not subjects of Ymir. And Annie even confirmed something we will talk about later too, that those families never risked their family tree to be infected with the tainted blood of the subject of Ymir. After the first generation that arrived with the king eventually died, the truth died with them. And now future generations of those families simply believed they were different because they had noble blood. The ancestors had no reason to go against the king and give up on their good life for them and for their future generations, and that's how their secret remained hidden. But some of the people who got persecuted, like Kenny's grandpa, didn't have any reason to keep the king's secret. His ancestors stood up to the king and got killed, so he had no respect or reason to honor the royal family, especially now when he was dying, and that's how Kenny, and also us, first found out about the different bloodlines on Paraids Island. Now I'm sure that by now you must have noticed I haven't used the word Eldians even once in this entire video. I only use the term Subjects of Ymir because as much as we want to believe, they are not exactly the same. What brings us to the next topic. Not all Eldians are subjects of Ymir. That is my personal interpretation, but let me prove this to you. And to do that, we have to jump 2000 years into the past. The subjects of Ymir are the people who came from the bloodlines of Maria Rose and Sina from inside the Old Eldian tribe. Over the years, their family tree has expanded drastically, and with that, the Eldian territory also began to expand. But who were those people from Eldia? Were they all subjects of Ymir? The answer is no. They couldn't be, and this is why. You see all those people, those soldiers and politicians or whatever, they all have families, not to mention all the regular citizens too. They will also have huge family trees across later generations. They are without a doubt Eldians, but they are not subjects of Ymir, simply because they still don't have any contact with the free girls. As long as their children don't carry the blood abnormality, they are still Eldians, but not subjects of Ymir. Now, you might say that over the years most of those families may have gotten mixed with some of the family tree of Maria Rose and Sina. From that point, their children will carry the blood abnormality known as the curse, and therefore they will be subjects of Ymir. But just like them, some of the families of Old Eldia didn't come in contact with the subjects of Ymir family tree. For example, maybe those guys' future generation got mixed with subjects of Ymir, but this person's future generation and his entire family tree didn't. Especially when the world was not so small for Eldia anymore. They have expanded over the world and met other races outside of the Eldian tribe. So the subjects of Ymir turned into a very large group within Eldia, but they were still families who didn't share the blood abnormality. Or, as Annie said, didn't infect their family tree with the tainted blood. But they were still undoubtedly Eldians, simply because they all came from the ancient Eldian tribe. The curse of the Titans and the creation of the subjects of Ymir was simply, and yes, I'm going to say it a lot in this video, a blood abnormality. This abnormality took over a large section of the population, especially as Eldia expanded. But still, some families in Eldia could go by generation without mixing their blood, and therefore didn't carry the blood abnormality. They simply remained Eldians, but not subjects of Ymir. Now, along the years, the Eldian Empire took over what was once ancient Marley, and more places around the world. Those remained a part of the Eldian nation for generations. The people living there were a mix of subjects of Ymir, regular Eldians who are not subjects of Ymir, and also other races that were around and also never mixed their family with the tainted blood. And of course, if any of those groups got mixed with the subjects of Ymir, then their children will be subjects of Ymir, now carrying that blood abnormality. A good example for that is Reiner. His mom is a subject of Ymir, but his father was Marleyan who had no contact with the tainted blood. The result was Reiner, who is definitely a subject of Ymir. But the fact that there are still other races that didn't come in contact with the blood abnormality, it is proof there is a fair chance that some Eldians didn't come in contact with it too. When the king's migration came, some of those bloodlines which are not subjects of Ymir also joined him. Because we don't have any information about the migration, we tend to imagine it as some sneaky operation, but I imagine it as a very messy situation with a lot of confusion all around. As I mentioned before, it will be impossible to single out your origin or race when you are trying to migrate as discreetly as possible, and that's why not all people who came along with the king back then were subjects of Ymir. Some were regular Eldians, Marleyans, and maybe people from other nations as well. They all came from back then expanded Eldia, but they were not all carrying the blood abnormality. Those bloodlines or families later became the supporters of the king and kept this secret from their future generations, as we talked about before. And the ones that didn't comply ended up like the remains of the Asian and the Ackerman clans. So basically, Chubby Royal Minister guy, the Sleepy King and all of that gang could be Eldians from family lines that didn't mix with the tainted blood. or even not Eldians at all, just like we mentioned in a panel of the warrior backstory before. The subjects of Ymir came from the Eldian tribe, but they were never the same. And as long as people stayed away from mixing their bloodline with the blood abnormality, they remained Eldians, the boring kind, the kind that doesn't turn into titans. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment and tell me if you see my logic on the Eldian Nation expansion and how some of them are not subjects of Ymir. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all real soon in my next video and even sooner in the comments. But until then, don't forget to dedicate your hearts to humanity, inside and outside the walls.